Hi there, welcome to a deep focus into dealing with panic attacks and as well OCD, how they can both exist at the same time and enhance the symptoms, making it more difficult. This video is to serve perspective and an understanding on the situation, the causes, the effects, and most importantly, the potential treatments and methods to counter the struggles during an episode, during a moment when it comes on. It can be unexpected and unpredictable. So by having methods, ways to cope, it can help ease the tension and the struggles faced. This video can also be for people that know of someone that may be experiencing the symptoms of either PTSD, complex PTSD, panic attacks in general, OCD, and the side effects from it, which can link on with panic attacks. Feel free to sit back today, listen in, relax, and I'll talk it through bit by bit. I do want to say once again, as a disclaimer, if it does get too much, too full on, you need a pause, a breather, you need to take a step back. You can pause the video, you can get a drink, or if you need to walk away, that's understandable. You do whatever makes you feel most comfortable. You can always catch up on this video or the rest of it on a different day. Welcome to those that are currently watching. If anyone is interested in these type of videos, or if you've missed out on the previous ones, the psychology-based, versions, don't worry. All of it is available to watch on catch up in the playlist located top right corner where the eye symbol is up there. If you click on it, you get a drop down menu with the psychology playlist, which focuses in on things like PTSD, complex PTSD, trauma, relationships, struggles, coping and understanding the issues at hand for a person going through it or for someone that knows of an individual that is. So, first of all, we need to understand what are panic attacks, what's the meaning behind it. On the surface level, it sounds something very negative, like the body, the mind, the nervous system is under attack by an invisible threat, or there's a stimuli that activates the nervous system and it goes into a panic mode, a state of feeling scared, anxious, worried, feeling like it's the end of the world, something's taking over, the feeling of losing control. But it can also be the brain's defense mechanisms as a form of survival. At first glance, you may think, how can having a panic attack be the mind's brain way of trying to protect itself as a form of survival? Because surely if you're frozen or unable to think or having struggles with breathing and regulating the body in the moment, how can that be survival based? It sounds more vulnerable. Well, linking back to evolution and more so animals, the predator versus the prey complex, at times, if an animal felt it couldn't escape, run, and it couldn't fight back, the last thing it can do is to stay completely still, almost frozen, like pretending to play dead. Now, in some circumstances with animals, like with humans, if you stand very still, some animals may not be able to see you or sense you as a threat. Like if you stay still and you don't panic or run or move about, the animals about may just ignore or walk by. Staying still, protecting oneself in a shell encased until the storm passes by. Another way of looking at it, metaphorically speaking, you've got a tornado or a hurricane coming on into town and you tuck yourself under something. You go into the bunker, the basement, the cellar. You lock up and you stay still until it passes. And yes, you may be feeling panic and worry, the uncertainty of the damage it will cause. Is it the end of the world? What will be lost in the process? Am I truly safe in this basement, or could that be at threat as well? And it's in a certain state for maybe a few minutes or longer until the disaster passes on by, and then the individual can safely come out of the bunker in a way, and then try and go back to normal. That's how it kind of is with a panic attack. In the moment, detecting a threat, a concern, alarm bells ringing inside, perceiving someone or an environment, or that there's a trigger which activates the nervous system, a shutdown response, freezing possibly, mind going numb or brain fog, dealing with high intensity emotions and feelings rushing through the body and mind, not quite sure what to do, maybe standing still, maybe moving about here and there. But the mind is trying to deal with a supposed threat, and it's also trying to give a boost to the body at the cost of the negative feeling. So on the surface level, it's hard to see it as a defense mechanism when it's causing so much distress. Of course, the most important part is trying to cope with it and deal with it when it does flare up, and I will get to that shortly. But whilst we're here, we need to acknowledge OCD, also known as obsessive compulsive disorder. And that can translate physically through actions, and it can stem from mentally, psychologically speaking, how the mind thinks. It's on the basis of rituals and routines, methods and planning, keeping things organized, trying to gain or maintain, take back control. And why exactly? Some forms of OCD can cross over with maybe parents if they've had it, but it can also come from the environment a person is in. And I'm just giving a rough example. If there was a time like trauma, a traumatic event such as childhood or onwards, where it felt like something was taken from a person, as in innocence, as in trust, as in stability, as in functionality. If something was taken or stripped unexpectedly and it left the person feeling raw, bare, and open, creating an open wound, a psychological effect of worry, concern, and panic. When associating an event with the loss of control, when associating the loss of control with negative feelings, the body could develop certain new patterns and thoughts which could stem from irrational beliefs that it will always be like that and it can happen every time and every moment. So trying to convince the mind and body to gain back control and safety, they must follow through with certain routines and methods in order to keep that peace and keep that stability. Because if they don't, the badness will come back. So it's like trying to avoid history from repeating itself and reinforcing that by rituals. That could be cleaning up, making sure everything is tidy. But the compulsions and the obsessiveness, as in overdoing it, over cleaning and then doing it all over again so many times. It could be washing your body, washing your hair, brushing your teeth. Maybe people do it 2 or maybe 3 times a day, but someone with OCD and dealing with struggles and any other stresses in life on top of it may encourage themselves to brush their teeth 5, 6 or more times a day. In reality, it's likely not needed, but to them, it feels like a necessity. It could also be changing clothes, changing the bed, but very often and very regular. Changing clothes multiple times in a day when it might not be needed, but for them it is. But they have their own special pattern and methods. To the outside world, People could critique it, but they wouldn't know, wouldn't understand. To a person struggling and dealing with OCD, some people may become hyper aware themselves, and whilst they're struggling and coping with it all, they may have an outwards negative outlook upon themselves, like putting themselves in the shoes of another person and judging themselves, blaming themselves by saying, it's so sad, this is so pathetic, it's so embarrassing. But the actual reality is, it's not sad, it's not pathetic. It makes sense with what they've dealt with in the past and how they're trying to cope and survive in the moment. It's a natural response under those specific circumstances. And the reason why OCD can link with panic attacks is when a certain ritual or routine isn't fulfilled on the day or by the hour, or it's forgotten, neglected for whatever reason. Because it's a break in the cycle, when the routine isn't there, it's that uncertainty. People like routine because it brings about a sense of familiarity and stability. Routine and consistency to some could be considered boring in life, but to many others, it involves security. It involves certainty, knowing what's to come, what's to happen in the moment. And then it brings about a level of peace because they've already dealt with the uncertainty in the past. They've been in positions back then where they lost something, someone, lost a part, a piece of themselves, physically, mentally. And when they were dealing with that, there was a loss, an empty feeling within, and that uncertainty of what happens next. So that uncertainty creates worry and panic and a bit of fear. If it's that internalization that anything could happen at any time, that adds extra layers of fear. So by trying to find certainty in life and stability for themselves, it brings about a level of peace, and that's what encourages their behavior, even if their behavior could be considered in some ways irrational and unnecessary. Examples being, you may only need to wash once or twice a day. You may only need to brush your teeth once or twice a day, and it's not the end of the world. But for them, who's gone through hell already, they want to be extra safe, extra cautious, because they don't want to leave anything to chance when it comes to dealing with uncertainty. They want control, self-control. They want to be able to control the situation. So like previous, when we touched upon survivor's guilt and self-blame for the past, it's easier to blame oneself than it is to accept that things are out of their control and it's just the universe, life, and other people that do the actions, and the ball is in other people's courts. When you finally accept that you can't control everything, it can be a scary feeling, and with a negative outcome. Under those circumstances, you wouldn't want it to happen again. So some people find it more comforting at the cost of hurting by blaming oneself. With OCD, routines, keeping things organized, planning around stuff, planning the day, planning a job, planning scheduling with a job or clients, doing it in advance, but maybe over planning, even tying in with overworking oneself as a means of coping, to drown out any noise, to drown out any loss of control, taking everything that comes, accepting everything as an offer, an opportunity, even if it does get overwhelming, because they don't want to lose anything. Some people overwork to distract themselves. People overwork as a trauma response. In other circumstances, people can overwork or take on too much because they don't want to say no. Because if the environment is uncertain or can be volatile or unstable, if there is the loss of a client or an opportunity, it can lead to the worry and panic of there may not be another choice, there may not be another option past this point, almost treating it like scarcity, as in there's low resources about. That can even apply to relationships and friendships where a person may panic and worry that an individual's the best and there's no one else out there, there's no one else that will want one, so it creates worry. That's a separate thing, but I just wanted to give different examples. So, obsessive compulsive disorder, irrational thoughts, and reinforced by if I don't do this at a set time, and if I don't do that and repeat it twice or 10 times, then something bad is going to happen. If I don't lock the door and then unlock and then lock, then the door may be unlocked. If I don't check the cooker button or the microwave or the switch or the plug, if I don't turn it on, off, and I only do it once or twice, then something bad is going to happen. They may convince themselves through irrational thoughts and more so through irrational fears. There are circumstances, though, it might be reinforced just by a coincidence of an event that took place. For example, if you had a content creator recording a video, they thought everything was fine, and then an hour later, they realized they didn't hit the record button, or they realized they had the mute button turned on, or they realized that the screen recorder wasn't functioning correctly. They realized that they had too much storage on their phone, so the video didn't save. Panic and worry like that and the stress it can cause. The next time you do a video and record, before you even begin, you're already thinking in your mind, overthinking, do I have the camera on? Is the audio working? Is it on mute? Is there enough storage and space on the device to save the video? Have I done everything right? You might even start doubting and questioning yourself and your ability because, unfortunately, by the off chance or a coincidence, it didn't work last time. You don't want that to happen again. So you may convince yourself to do all these system checks and even double check, triple check, just to be safe. It adds time onto it all. That's the thing with OCD. Whilst being extra safe and extra cautious to maintain control, stability, it does lead to more time being consumed. A person who may not have OCD may clean up once, move some items to the side, fold clothes up quickly, and that's it, done. Could take 10, 20 minutes. But a person that's got a routine and a pattern and a pace to it, upon reviewing and acting, and then maybe re-cleaning and reorganizing again just to be safe for their own peace of mind, it might take double the time. It might take 30, 40 minutes instead of 10 to 20. But for the sake of the cost of time being used up, it's balanced out by their own peace of mind. If a person was to lock a door, and they may do it once or twice, sometimes OCD can just be as simple as doubting one's self. It might not always be the routine of overdoing something, but the routine of doing it or doing it slightly different. And then when you're out somewhere or leaving, you get an intrusive thought within. Did I lock the door? Did I actually lock it? Did I shut that window? And you probably did. You may have even been on autopilot. But now this thought within has caught up, this doubt within. Whether that stems back to the past of blaming oneself or low self-value or being questioned in the past, being devalued by someone and made to question everything that they do and say, that can have lasting effects on the person in the present dealing with the symptoms. But even just a person who hasn't gone through that but has OCD, those intrusive thoughts and questioning of one's self, ability and character can make them doubt what they've just done, even if they've done what they always do. So upon certain routines and patterns, if there is a slight level of doubt or questioning, whilst other people could brush it off and think, nah, it'll be okay, it'll be fine, it won't be for the one dealing with the OCD, because it will play on their mind and it won't go away until they check in on it. So that means driving back an hour or more to where they left off just to check to be safe. That's what they'll do. If they have to redo what they were originally doing just to be safe, because they doubt their ability or what they've already done. They'll do it because it's like playing on the mind, those obsessions, those compulsions within, eating away, constantly questioning, should I go back? Should I check? Or should I just brush it off and think it'll be fine and okay? There might be a chance it'll be fine and okay, but to them, it's hard to shut off. OCD can involve overthinking, like with over planning, over scheduling, over cleaning, overthinking. There's so many different forms of OCD and it can overlap with one another. So certain routines and rituals, when they're done, can be time consuming, can use up energy quite a bit. And if it's not done properly, or there's a slight level of doubt, those thoughts of overthinking it and the irrational thoughts and worries take over, forcing the person to go back and check, forcing the person to go back and redo what they've just done for the sake of safety and peace of mind. A person could have had a really long, hard day. They've shut the door, they've had a wash, they've gone to bed, but they're thinking, did I lock the door multiple times? Did I make sure I lock it? I don't know. Did I turn the tap off in the bathroom? That overthinking, they're trying to sleep, but they can't shut off. The mind is active, the mind is hyper alert, scanning for threats, scanning for dangers, scanning for issues. And if there's a level of self-doubt, likely the person won't rest until they've checked. So they may get out of bed, disrupting their sleep and their comfort, to go and check the tap to make sure it's off, then to go downstairs and make sure the door is locked. If they don't and they stayed in one place, it would be constantly playing on their mind, possibly, as in, well, okay, if I do leave it and it turns out that it wasn't done properly, what's the worst case scenario? And all those thoughts, worries and fears kick on in. It's not about invalidating it or devaluing it. Their worries and fears are very understandable and do make sense. And at times they can well be true, as in, if a door wasn't locked, anyone could get in. So for them to think and feel that, it could be the end of the world or a life or death situation. And they want to make sure that they maintain or gain back that control. If they lost control in the past, and now they're in a situation where their routine or ritual has been disrupted, not fulfilled during the day, a slight change to the patterns of routines, that can disrupt the nervous system and the thought pattern within. So when dealing with the uncertainty, a new routine, a new cycle, a different order of things, it can come across as overwhelming, and trying to adapt and adjust to it can be difficult. So like being in a different location, going a different route, going on a different walk, being in a different country, visiting a different city, being around different people. That routine and pattern changes, having to adapt, readapt and reevaluate the situation and the location, checking for the threats, checking for the nearest safety, checking for certainty, checking for patterns and routines. It comes in many different ways, and it can overwhelm the body. When referring to panic attacks can come from OCD as a side effect symptom. Panic attacks can come from PTSD, complex PTSD, a trauma response. So panic attacks can be a response to a bigger issue or run in parallel to other problems and struggles faced. So beside, the meaning of a panic attack, what are the symptoms? What are the effects and to look out for? And how does OCD link with it? We'll get to that link shortly, but let's just focus in on panic attacks, the symptoms and effects. It can be the psychological feeling of losing control, the feeling of impending doom, the feeling of something bad is really going to happen or it's already happening, the psychological feeling of losing control of oneself, the psychological effect of something is taking over the situation and they're suffocating physically, but also more so mentally. The psychological effects and symptoms of a panic attack can be a shortened breath, fast, irregular, erratic breathing, not controlled, not steady, but fast and all over the place, out of pace, intense heartbeats, the heart beating faster than usual. Think of it like when you're scared, watching a horror film, a loud bang, something that makes you jump, and your pulse and your heart is racing. Well, just imagine that for someone with a panic attack, but it lasts longer and persists on, and the beating can be more intense. With the shortened of breath, but also fast and heart and struggling to breathe, the chest, you can get chest pain, the chest can tighten, and that can link with the breathing and the strain on the body and the organs. It can lead to muscles, hands tensing up, squeezing and releasing and trying to regulate and cope. It can lead to a shutdown inside where a person has their eyes open, but it's like a 1,000-yard stare. They're kind of disassociating from what's familiar around them, such as people, friends, a partner. Whilst their eyes are open, their mind is on, but not, what's present, not the grounding effect, but all that worry inside, a past memory, an intrusive thought, a PTSD flashback, or something visual, a sense, a sensory trigger around in the air, the atmosphere, and then they focus in on that like tunnel vision, and that panic attack is a form of tunnel vision, hyperfixating on it, feeling it all the negative feelings and worrying and struggling, and neglecting the peace that's around them, or neglecting the good people that are present, neglecting the nice view or the fresh air, the sense in the air. They kind of neglect all the positives and just focus in on the negatives because the brain is trying to process, trying to regulate, and trying to survive the moment by freezing, by stopping, standing still, or mentally as a means of trying to think, well, if I stay quiet and if I don't move, then I will appear invisible. So then the threat will go or move away. It's like with those methods of like when people deal with PTSD, if I push those feelings under the rug and pretend that they're not there, then they just don't exist. Then I don't have to worry about it. In the moment, that might be true, but long term, it's not healthy and it can make it harder for them. When dealing with a panic attack, it can come, it can go. Some are short, others are long. A panic attack could last a few minutes, it could last up to 20 minutes. And the come down effect, once recovered, can be quite draining and exhausting. There can be a physical and mental low period shortly after a panic attack, whether that be psychologically speaking, that they blame themselves for it happening, or they feel ashamed, or they feel guilt for being that way because of either the effect it's had on people about them and they didn't want to worry anyone, or they just feel really bad about themselves for what they did because it's seen to them as a moment of weakness or vulnerability, and that's not who they want to be. Or it might even stem back to the past where they were told they can't be vulnerable in a controlling, toxic environment where a friend or another partner had drilled it into them they can't be vulnerable, and it was backed up with a subjective, reckless thought with a forceful tone to brainwash, to indoctrinate, to make someone change in a forceful way. The one on the receiving end of that, the poor mistreatment and maltreatment, may internalize that and lose a sense of themselves. So when it does spill out in other ways in the future, it reminds them of what they were told that they couldn't do or express back then. Kind of brings it back as an indirect trigger. So with panic attacks varying in lengths, there's not much predictability, and the timing of when it comes about. Some people may get early warning signs, as in how they start feeling. May start feeling a bit tense, may feel a little bit faint, may sweat a little bit, palms may be a bit clammy. Their breathing becomes a little shortened. Their eyes and pupils may change. Okay? They may feel that something is off or wrong. A slow burn, and then it may intensify. Those early warning signs, if they became familiar with, they may be able to cope better to prevent it from escalating much worse. But it doesn't guarantee it, because with panic attacks, they can be unpredictable and can happen at any moment, even when a person feels that they're calm, that there's nothing to worry about. Sometimes it can stem back to the subconscious and unconscious mind, such as with when going to sleep. When sleeping, you would associate that with a sanctuary, a place of safety, and maybe even a routine tying it in with OCD, getting a glass of water, brushing the teeth, putting a glass of water by the bedstand, getting into bed, tucking the sheets in, making sure there's no creases, things like that, and then sleeping, relaxing. If paired with PTSD or complex PTSD and night terrors or other issues with sleeping, it can lead to a disruption in pattern of sleep. And especially when the subconscious mind opens up and becomes more active, hence the dream state, where you dream of things. Well, you can also have nightmares as well. Any night terrors can disrupt the pattern of sleep, disrupt the body, the mind, and can be draining, can be scary and worrying. A panic attack can come from a night terror. A night terror can alert the body and scare it. The heart, the brain goes into survival mode, defense mechanisms. The person may freeze. The person may run. The person may panic. Their heart is racing. Whether it's a direct panic attack or it's very similar to one, the person feels unsafe and they're trying to regulate. They're trying to process that intense burst of feelings, emotions, and thoughts. So, when it comes to sleep and the subconscious mind being active and open, intrusive thoughts and feelings from the past can slip out of the subconscious mind even when awake and in the present. Those type of panic attacks can be, for example, sudden, unexpected, maybe in some cases unavoidable, because you can't avoid something if you didn't know about it in the first place. You're not to know. You can't blame yourself for it, right? So when an unexpected panic attack occurs, whether it's intense, short-term, long-term, or minor, it's hard to deal with. So coping mechanisms are definitely needed for that. And maybe more so, the more severe ones, when there's the presence of a friend, a loved one, a family member, a significant other, a partner, they can play a role to be a part of the journey, a part of healing, a part of helping the other person. It's not about being a carer. It's not about that. It's just about supporting someone who may be going through a difficult moment, short term, long term. It can help strengthen that connection between people to bridge that gap of any isolation or distance. By bridging that gap, by learning, understanding, and being able to help one another, or for the person helping the other with the symptoms, it can create a purpose, but not a responsibility. It creates meaning and value without it being a chore. And if stability can be placed within it, there can be a level of vulnerability without the over-reliance or being too dependent, but having that support system in place, which can in itself bring about a feeling of familiarity, stability, consistency, if that person can show up and be present and have the tools like a mini emergency medical kit through words, language, tone, through breathing and methods to help the other person. And if it can be done as often as it's needed within reason, it can make the other person dealing with the symptoms feel a little bit more at peace. That when a panic attack does creep in, when OCD and rituals aren't met or disrupted, it may not feel as bad as much of the end of the world because they know that there is another person present that understands them. There's another person nearby that has their back in a way. So a person doesn't have to fight a battle alone. They can have support, and they should be allowed to. For some people, in their minds and how they've dealt with the past, they may have adapted because they had no choice. So it can be a bit harder to try and assist and reach out to them when they may be set in their ways or have a wall built up. But all that can be done is just consistency, as in showing up, even as simple as listening to them, if that's the least that they are willing to open up to. And then maybe that gap can be bridged eventually with time. So you can get closer to them, you can understand them better, and you can feel like you're doing more in helping and being the partner that they deserve and what they may secretly want deep down. So, in regard to a situation where a panic attack comes in, what are the triggers? Beside the symptoms, what can trigger a panic attack? Well, first of all, OCD. OCD and rituals and routines done to maintain control. And by maintaining control, it means consistency and frequency, which brings stability and reassurance, which ultimately leads to peace of mind. If something isn't done, if a chore or a task is incomplete or not done with perfection, it will play on the person's mind. If they don't wash multiple times, if they don't check the lock on the door, they don't press a button on and off, and so on, they may think something bad will happen. Just the general action of a routine or a pattern being disrupted or neglected can feel like the end of the world to them and bring them back to a time where they once were in an actual position of loss of power and loss of control, whether that be poor treatment, verbal, physical, whether it be a toxic relationship or a childhood trauma. Shocking, traumatic events like that can be intrusive thoughts and feelings to justify the moment in the present of when a simple action isn't fulfilled, and they feel that they're going to lose everything all over again, or they're going to be left exactly how they were as they were in the past. They don't want to repeat that. They don't want to go through all that hell. Likely reality is, if they don't do a certain routine or pattern and they don't fulfill it, it's not going to be the end of the world. They're not going to die. They will be likely okay. And technically, in a way, panic attacks aren't fatal either. However, the person dealing with it all and those symptoms, they're not going to be able to think like that. The people that can look at it in a more casual way, some of those people that think like that may not have it themselves, so they're not ultimately going to know what it is like. And especially when a person is dealing with irrational thoughts and intense fears, that can take over the body and mind. So the critical thinking and the standard introspection is almost like thrown out the window, and that tunnel vision of hyper focus on the negatives, that can take over. So it does make it hard to see things from different perspectives. That is understandable, especially when dealing with intense thoughts and feelings in the moments and coping with it, trying to survive. So, when it comes about a panic attack, OCD can link with it. Not performing a ritual or a task, a certain pattern or routine deregulated or broken up on the day or by the hour can lead to intense fear and panic, thinking it's the end of the world, they're going to be punished, something bad's going to happen, the past is going to repeat itself. That brings about an intense feeling of worry and anxiousness that can lead to loss of control with breathing, not breathing properly, starting to overthink all the thoughts inside, replaying everything, reviewing everything that they've said in a previous conversation or an interaction with someone, worrying, did they do the right thing? Did they do enough? Did they say enough? What happens if they don't do it? Are they going to be punished now? Lots of noise inside, lots of distractions, which then impacts the physical ability, the mental ability, and even something as simple as breathing. Dealing with so much that they neglect the basics. So when you neglect the standard breathing, what can happen is the heart, the pulse, the oxygen levels become deregulated around the body. The mind could feel a bit lightheaded, could feel a bit dizzy, disorientated. Breathing irregular through the mouth and not properly. Lips could dry and tingle. And then the mind could worry, as in, why can't I breathe now? Why am I breathing differently? And if their body reacts, as in their muscles tensing and straining, that intense straining and tensing within all the different muscle groups, that can be like a workout, and it can ache, it can hurt. So then the mind might be thinking, why is it hurting? Why is my chest area in pain? Why is it close to my heart? Am I having a heart attack? Sometimes a panic attack can feel like a heart attack. Sometimes a panic attack can feel like a person is drowning in invisible water, that they're slowly suffocating and they're going to die. That can bring about an intense fear. And what some people would say in a slightly ignorant way would be, all you have to do is just breathe and it'll be okay. All you have to do is just get a paper bag and breathe into it and it'll be fine. It's not that simple. It's not that simple when they're multitasking with so much emotionally in the moment. Sometimes a distraction is needed, a grounding tool and method is needed, and I will highlight that very shortly. But when a person is dealing with it alone, it can be hard. Some people may fight it. Some people may have it during an activity or a piece of work and they fight through it, maybe through autopilot. They grip onto whatever and push on through the pain or the worry. Some people may become hardened to it, may adjust to it and put up, but not everyone is the same and not everyone will react the same. So I'm trying to base my analysis on when it's the worst case scenario or when it does feel like it's too hard to keep on going and how it can feel in the moment. So a chain reaction from overthinking to then over worrying to then neglecting certain basics and necessities can impact breathing. Tensing of the muscle body inside can lead to aches and pains about like the chest, heart area with the lowered breathing and breathlessness and any other health conditions. A chain reaction from one thing to another, making it all more difficult, more uncomfortable physically and mentally. And that can last for a few minutes. It could last longer. It may feel like they're trapped in the moment and they can't escape from it. Some people may panic and do the flight. They run away from their thoughts and feelings, but when they're having a panic attack, whilst they're running away, it's following them because it's inside, it's an internal struggle. So whilst they're running away or they can't stand still because they're panicking, agitated, uncomfortable, it's not easing. And when a person tries running away from it and it follows them, it can bring about even more worry and panic and concern. The equivalent of if a person was on fire for some reason, their clothes were on fire, they were patting it away, and then the flame came back. They started rolling on the ground, the flame came back. They start worrying because no matter what they do, that flame won't go out, that burning feeling won't, that danger just won't go away. Then they start running all over the place and the fire is still burning bright. And then they may try taking a layer of clothing off and that flame is still burning away through the material. And then in the end, they might take all the clothing off or jump in water. But it's that theme of trying to run away doesn't always lead to avoiding or leaving those feelings behind. When it's inside and an internal war, as they run, they're running with the problems. Like a person who gets overwhelmed and freezes, a trauma response, freezing, clamming up, protect themselves, protect others around so their darkness doesn't consume anyone else. But whilst a person is freezing up, they're not exactly, disconnecting those struggles and putting them outside of a bubble or into a box and moving on. They're dealing with it still in a slightly different way, but in an isolated way. Like with a person who's on fire, they're doing certain methods and distancing themselves from other people so that fire doesn't spread, but they're still burning, literally and metaphorically. It can't go, or in the moment it can't. And it may take time, and it may take a certain way or method extensively, externally, to eliminate the threat or control, contain it in a way. So, in regard to a panic attack being triggered by an OCD ritual and method not being fulfilled, that intense worry, fear and panic can lead to the survivor's survival instinct, body and mind, in going into overdrive, and the body, the chemicals within, at an all-time high. Adrenaline running, shaky, breathlessness, panic, not knowing what to do or how to cope, possibly. And the people that don't know how to cope or how to breathe or how to reduce it, that can lead to added stress. When they don't know how to get rid of it, they feel it might be permanent, so it really scares them. Now, in terms of other triggers beside OCD, it could stem back to even trauma, PTSD. If there is a scent in the air, an atmosphere, if there is music playing about, if visually something happens in the moment, or there's an auditory sound, can trigger an intrusive thought, a loud bang sound, a very busy room, a crowded area, a crowded, busy place, feeling trapped, feeling enclosed, claustrophobia, even phobias, even having claustrophobia on its own, enclosed spaces, the fear of it. In an environment like that, the environment can be the trigger, and the symptoms from those struggles and phobias can lead to panic, and panic can coincide with a panic attack. So you can see how panic attacks can be its own thing, but it also falls under the umbrella of different issues and struggles in life. And it's, in general, the body's response to a perceived threat, environment, stimuli that triggers the survival response to try and cope, to try and deal with it, but also feeling the intensity and the unpleasant feelings and the physical feelings that come with it accompanied. A lot is going on. In an open space where it's very quiet and peaceful, that could calm the individual. But in a really busy, bustling area where it might even feel like there's lots of eyes on you, it might make you hyper alert, hyper aware, scanning for threats, and also just feeling not quite yourself. It can come in many different ways, and it's all very understandable, and even biologically speaking too. It can happen, and it can be hard to control and maintain and know when it's coming and when it's going. So with knowing of those triggers, which is similar to like with PTSD, a sensory, touch, feeling, sound, a trigger activating a core memory, a past action, a past event, maybe traumatic, which brings them back to it, living it, reliving in the moment. The same with a panic attack, reliving indirectly something from the past which was unpleasant to them, and they experienced a feeling of loss of control, a loss of sense, a loss of purpose. Dealing with the unknown and the uncertainty often for them equals danger, maybe death, maybe end of the world. In other circumstances where a person may not have issues like that, uncertainty can be more a mystery, and it is what it is. But for people that have lacked control and lacked the peace and the freedom, it can lead to holding on to it and grasping it as much as possible, or even trying to find it when there isn't any. Hence routines, makeshift, in the moment, being resourceful but also tied and pinned down with irrational weight. The irrational thoughts and the weight is what can drive a certain response and reaction and create the feeling of discomfort and worry, and then tying in with the panic. So, with all that being in mind, as for the coping methods, one of them would be breathing. But this is the thing. A lot of people say breathing, but for a person that is struggling to breathe to begin with, and a lot of intrusive thoughts and a battle going on inside, are they going to be able to think, must breathe and must do it a certain way? Not that simple. It's not that easy. Lower the expectation. Don't expect them to be able to do it perfect. Especially if you're in the presence of someone that is going through a panic attack, don't just demand them or force them to breathe, because it can come across as a trigger itself, an insult, a demand, and it might make the situation more intense. They need reassurance. A person who's going through a panic attack needs reassurance, grounding words, a sense of familiarity, words and sounds of familiarity, a familiar face, but with a level of distance and space to respect their personal space. When a person is going through a panic attack, they may not be quite themselves. If they're going through intrusive thoughts or even a night terror, they may be envisioning the past as the present and the past memories of people in the present. So when they see other people around, including yourself, the other half, they may not see you for you, but someone from the past. That's why space is required to an extent, and distance. You can always check for the social cues and body language. If they appear open and, able to welcome you, let you get close, let you hug them, then consider. They want to be grounded at a time of turbulence. Grounding sensory effects such as a hug, holding them, simply holding their hand, regulating their heartbeat in sync with yours, bringing a sense of familiarity of what a healthy, calmer heart sounds like and feels by holding their hand out, placing it on your chest area, letting their face or neck rest into your shoulder neck area to feel that gentle warmth and that pulse. Allowing them to press or lean against somewhere without having to make eye contact with the rest of the world and everyone else about. Being able to create a bubble, being able to shut the world out. And sometimes a person struggling can do that themselves if they think, if they meditate, if they zone out. But in a circumstance where they can't, or another person is present, like the partner, they can step in and do those methods. But before we get any further with that, the breathing one can be demonstrated amongst a partner and other half, or the individual with the symptoms can apply it themselves, the breathing. But because this video could be for someone that has these symptoms, or someone that has them, but they're not going through an episode right in the moment, this video can be applied. The method of breathing is important, but beside the method, one thing that's never really talked about or acknowledged is the purpose behind it, the meaning and the depth. When you understand the purpose behind breathing, the importance behind it, the importance of breathing, the pacing of the breathing, and the certain techniques of breathing, it creates a whole lot more depth without it being overcomplicated, right? Because like in life, the more you learn about the depth of something, you realize there's a lot more to it, which adds value. It adds a level of weight and significance in a positive way. You value it more because of the depth that it has and what it can provide for you. Sometimes if it's lackluster or empty, there's not much to it. There's not much to think about. So it may feel pointless or worthless. But something that holds value can hold importance. And when people value something, they're more likely to do it, to keep it, to maintain it, whatever that may be. So whilst breathing is obviously necessary to stay alive, for someone that is struggling to breathe as a symptom of a panic attack could feel like that they're dying and it's the end of the world. So not so much in the moment talking it through, but the backstory behind it is understanding when it comes to breathing, it's something just about everyone does, and most people can do it without thinking too much. Something that is almost automatic or somewhat taught at young age, it just becomes a part of you, a part of a routine, which is, for most of the time, normally there. And I'm careful with my wording because there might be some people that do have health issues and struggles beyond, right? And may need assistance with breathing and all that. But in terms of just simple breathing and dealing with a panic attack, it's something that they should be familiar with. Even if they're struggling or they lose the ability or they forget how to breathe, it's something that they've always done. Unlike something like swimming. Swimming is likely something that you learn with time, but it wasn't done from the moment you were brought into this world. Whereas breathing is, in a way. So when it's so built into the body and the mind as a method to survive and a method to function, it can be very natural. So it's about reminding the person the best way to cope and regulate the body and mind in the moment during a panic attack is just to focus everything on breathing. Forget everything else, focus on breathing. It's something primal, instinctive, and learn evolutionary through behavior and when being born. Focusing all that focus on breathing and reminding themselves it's what they've always done during panic attacks and outside of panic attacks from a young age to present age right now. It can remind them that familiarity of, oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I do breathe. That's why I'm alive right now. That's why I'm alive yesterday, tomorrow, and so on. I've done this before breathing. It's in through the nose and maybe out through the mouth, or in through the mouth, out through the nose, depending on certain techniques. Oh yeah, I've breathed before. You don't have to go too far with all the different methods and techniques of breathing, as in a pursed, closed half mouth of taking in so much oxygen and breathing so much out and really controlling it. You know, in certain sports, athletes, and even deep sea diving, there might be a special method to breathing and all that. That can get too complex, too much in the moment. Focus on the core basics. The core basics are what's most important. You can be successful at something in life just by nailing it and perfecting the basics of certain actions and the basic skills and abilities. If you perfect that, it can be more than enough. So just by focusing in on breathing, which is well known and done by most people, and it's something that is somewhat simple. If you focus on the basic techniques of breathing like how you normally would, it brings about a sense and feeling of familiarity. And with familiarity, it grounds them, stabilizes them, reminding them of where they are and what they're used to doing. During panic attacks, it's when dealing with uncertainty, when dealing with the unknown and the feeling of it, the impending doom. If they're reminded of something familiar, it can bring back calming memories of, oh yeah, I do remember that, positive moments and times. Oh yeah, I am able to breathe, and I have been, and I am right now. I just got to control it a little bit better. When a person is reminded of what they are doing and what they can do, it brings about a level of peace, a little bit more reassurance. Things that can do the opposite, as in make it worse or harder, is when they're told to do something that they can't do. And even in normal situations in life, a person that can't perform a task or can't complete something can be stressful and frustrating. When an individual is dealing with OCD, overthinking, or dealing with panic attacks, or dealing with PTSD, when they can't perform an action, they may feel either a loss of control, a loss of achievement. They may blame themselves, they may spiral, and it could escalate past that point. If a person can do an activity perform an action, something simple, something basic, something that they're used to doing, and are reminded of that familiarity can be peaceful. That ability to be able to do it can make them feel like they're achieving something and they're succeeding. When a person is panicking, they may feel like they're failing themselves and they're failing other people around. They just don't know what to do. So they can just put all their time and focus into just one thing that they can do that can help them. And it just so happens that breathing naturally and in a controlled way can naturally reduce the stress in the body and the mind and de-escalate the intensity of that current moment and episode. By breathing steadily and controlling that pulse and the blood pressure within and controlling that heart, slowing it all down, calms the body, and then that can calm the mind. So a simple task can be very effective, but in terms of understanding the purpose behind it, the depth and the meaning can be more encouraging to getting someone to do the breathing and focus in on it, and to not treat it like a throwaway piece of advice. Because the reason why it can be deemed as a throwaway piece of advice is how it's issued to someone, just telling them to do this, to do that, giving them orders, shouting at them, or just expecting them to do it. They may not know how to, or a sudden demand or action may lead to them blanking and panicking and being unsure or uncertain. Similar with when a person's dealing with PTSD, if you used to ask them a question, what do you think, or what do you want? They might not be able to answer. They may go blank. When put on the spot, it can lead to counterproductive outcomes. When you lay cards out on a table in a steady, controlled way, without any pressure, without any demand, and without any expectation, it gives them the control and the pacing to go at it under their terms. When they've got the pace and they've got the control, that brings about a sense of achievement, what they're trying to maintain, what they've been trying to do through OCD in a way. So the panic attack part with breathing can be very helpful. Now, in terms of certain methods, if possible, under the circumstances, one way of breathing in a somewhat controlled and steady way would be breathing in and then holding the breath for 1 to 2 seconds, and then exhaling through the mouth, allowing a circuit and flow, a passageway up and a passageway out, creating a physical and mental loop. A mental, physical loop of breathing and securing the body and mind. It's not one way in and out. It's one way in, another way out. That nice, slow cycle and response with dealing with an uncertain event. Simply understanding the mechanics of breathing through the nose and exhaling through the mouth creates that pattern and that understanding of where it comes and where it goes and how it's done. By understanding the breathing and learning that in a way, and the background, the purpose behind it, brings about a level of reassurance and knowledge and consistency. By knowing what to expect, if I breathe in and breathe out through my mouth, oxygen in, carbon dioxide out, and it regulates the body, it allows the person to live, and so on. They know what to expect. They know what they can apply, etc. So, in terms of demonstrating it right now, a person who's watching this, who knows as someone that may have panic attacks, this method can be applied, providing the social cues that they're willing and opening to do it. If they come across as tense or defensive or protective, you don't force it upon them. Just the basic breathe in and out, breathe in and out, like that. As for holding the breath part, that can be done if they're able to and want to. If they show any signs of distress, as in holding their breath, it might be too soon and too much. So just basic breathing will do. Always resort back to the basics if it gets too much, and always begin with the basics. So how it starts is how it ends. That in itself is a symbolism of consistency, knowing what to expect now and what to expect later. Like you get so far, and if you fall back on a sense of security and familiarity, metaphorically speaking. The more of that, the more calming and safe the environment is. It's about making the environment safe, reminding them they are safe. But that might have to be done in different ways and through distance as well. And we'll get to that later. But in terms of the method of breathing, it can be breathe in and hold 2 seconds or so. And then out through the mouth. And when breathing out, before taking the next breath, waiting 1 to 2 seconds, then breathing back in and repeating, holding the breath. And then out. Waiting to take a breath, 1 to 2 seconds, breathing back in. Holding, then back out. And one more time, in. Hold, and then out through the mouth. Hold, and then breathe back in. And to try and repeat that slowly. And if that's too much, just a simple breathe in and breathe out method. Grounding methods on top of that could be with physical contact if the partner is present and if they're open enough for it. By holding their hands, palms in your hand, creates a grounding effect of a feeling of familiarity, making eye contact with the person to break that 1,000-yard stare, putting yourself in front of their line of sight. So whatever the trigger was in the environment is obscured or blocked, and now they have to focus in on something specific, which could be yourself, your eyes, your face, your lips, which brings about familiarity, what they're used to, what they can remember. And it's like, just focus all your energy into me, my eyes, my lips, and control that breathing if you can match my pace. You know, along the lines of that, grounding effects, tuning into nature, tuning into the emotions of one another if you are in a relationship with someone or a friendship. Of course, when it's by oneself, there may not be another person about. So the breathing part and understanding the methods behind it and the importance, and that a lot of people can do it even when it feels like they can't. Because if they really couldn't do it, they wouldn't be alive. Because you need to breathe and you need oxygen to live. And even when you're breathing and panicking and it's all over the place, yes, there are genuine symptoms that can cause it and can have effects from it too. As long as you're breathing and there is oxygen, you will be alive and you should be somewhat okay. But it's going to be hard to see it that way in the moment when panicking. But I'm just using a combination of critical thinking, light-hearted thinking to break through the darkness, but then also the core methods and the basic methods to deal with it in the moment. Now, beside breathing, calming sounds can help. Whether that be trying to zone out and focus in on a certain sound around as a distraction, whether that be the sound of a tweeting bird, whether it be the sound of running water, whether it be the sound of a seagull passing by, whether it be the sound of waves or water crashing against rocks, whether it be the gentle sound of a humming fan or the sound of traffic in a way, relating to a sound that brings a level of peace or familiarity and focusing all that energy into that or part of it to try and distract oneself from a certain threat. That can be done. Under the circumstances where maybe an environment isn't possible for those sounds or they're not present, but a partner is present, a significant other, certain methods, whether it be done by touch, one's own heart, or it be done by sound, the voice, talking in a lower, deeper voice a vibrational voice. Those vibrations can penetrate through the other person, distract them, and bring a level of calmness due to the frequency that it has on the person's mind, how it can help calming. Heartbeat. If it's not based on touch, it could be based on sound by doing the heart sound, which I'll do right now. First of all, matching the pace of their heart. Why is it important to do the sound and match the pace of their heart? Because it shows you're connected and it shows that you understand them. Because when a person is dealing with symptoms and struggles, they may feel isolated from everyone around them, even in the same room, because they're the one going through that struggle. Maybe no one else is. So they're not going to know what it's truly like, or at least that's what the person with the symptoms may be thinking. So they feel alone, even when in a room full of people. So if certain symptoms and effects from a panic attack can be mirrored to say, hey, you're not the only one. I can feel your heart. I can hear your heart. I can match the pace of your heart through the sound, creating the heartbeat. It makes them feel less alone and more connected and in tune with you and the frequency as well. So let's demonstrate it right now, how their heart could be at first during a panic attack, and then how it can slow down, and with breathing too. I have done this method before with people and they have said that it does lower their heart rate. Now that would be with people who weren't panicking at the time, but if a calm person can have their heart rate lowered even when it's not needed and they're calm already, then the effects can be greater when someone does have a faster beating heart and it needs slowing down within reason by a familiar face, if I may add. So let's do it. First of all, their heart rate. Like that. Now, if it's a bit too quiet, I'll just get a bit closer to the screen. Just bear with me. Here we go. That's how it can be. It might be faster, it might be a little bit slower, but when the heart is pounding and pacing like that, so is the blood flowing through the body and rushing about, the oxygen levels as well. The irregular breathing through the mouth or the nose can be a bit all over the place. So whilst that heart is racing, it's about slowing it down bit by bit. Like that, with gentle breathing in between. And lastly, really slow. Like that. Another grounding combination would be your partner to hold their hands gently, or your friend, and providing they are willing and wanting to rest their hands around or near your throat, because when doing that heartbeat sound, there's a lot of vibration and bass coming from the throat area. So those vibrations, that sensory feeling, can ground them and distract them from an invisible fear, worry, or panic. Everything that they're dealing with inside, if there can be something physical in the moment externally, it can help pull them out of that black hole. It can help pull them out of that quicksand and become more in the present and feel it as a distraction, and that distraction can slowly calm them a bit. Other ways of therapy and treatment can be certain frequencies and vibrations, like cats. Some people have cats as either a coping mechanism, a form of company, noise, but the touch, the sensories, feelings you can get from having a cat or a certain pet can help as well. The purring can be one of them. So if a person was panicking, but they're willing to get close, if you used to purr gently upon their wrist, if you went like that and you was to purr on the wrist area, targeting the pulse, that vibration, that purr, like that, can be calming and soothing. Or I've used to do it where major pulse is there, you feel it. If used to gently nuzzle, providing it's someone of course, and you're able to get close enough, and maybe more so in a relationship where you can be intimate, providing it's possible in the moment, if possible. Nestling your face nose into the person's neck area, around the side area where you can feel the pulse. Gently resting your face against it, that sensation of warmth which they will feel, that grounding effect, that level of intimacy and connection which makes them feel secure and supported physically and reassured that there is a safe space despite a big open world full of unpredictability. And then providing that purring sensation and feeling and vibration, it can pierce and penetrate through them and calm them and calm that pulse, calm that blood pressure. Just an overall relaxing effect, like how a real cat could and would. So we'll do it right now. Now, when it comes to the purring, it can be fast, it can be slow, it can be long, whatever pace that matches the tone and makes them feel most calm. Now, the next thing that can be done, tying in with the senses and communication and distraction, is the 1, 2, 3, 4 approach, or the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 approach, where you ask them if they're willing to communicate what are the 5 things that you see around you, what are the 4 things you can hear or touch, what are the 3 things you can hear or taste, what are the 1 or 2 things you can think of in the moment. It's like questions with answers, but basic ones. They may seem silly, but it's to ground the person, to remind them of where they actually are. Because during a panic attack, a person could disassociate from their current environment. If there was a trigger, if there was a flare-up, if there was a subconscious thought within, and they could be in a peaceful area, they could even be in a field, they could be on a mountain, they could be in a quiet town, they could be in an ambient cafe or restaurant where there's not too many people about, but they're panicking and worrying. So you can't always expect a safe, quiet, or peaceful environment to mean that they're going to be peaceful themselves. They could still have a panic attack, because you can't plan when it comes or goes, and you don't know when it could happen. It can be unexpected. Those invisible triggers, unexpected triggers, subconscious mind leaking over. So, by reminding the person of where they actually are, you're here, you're at your house, you're in a safe place, you're in a quiet area, you're in a location with me, with a friend, whatever. It grounds them. It pulls them out of that tunnel. It brings them back into the present. They become more alert. They kind of snap out of that trance and realize, oh yeah, I am here. I am safe. I am secure. I am okay. But to get to that, you might have to ask them certain questions, as in, what can you see around you? Name whatever. What can you hear around you? Name that. What can you describe that's around you? What can you hear? What can you feel? Any sounds when feeling? Questions like that. And it's just reminding them back to where they are and what they're doing. It snaps them out in a way, or distracts them from that ongoing panic. It allows them a bit of time and space just to cool off a little bit. Now, tying in with that, distance is another thing. Would that be respecting their personal space during that moment? That can help them. But let's just say, and this is another method and maybe a key one where you can bring it all together. If you know of someone, or the person themselves is struggling firsthand, what can be done? Look for the signs, look for the cues, try and pick up, if possible, body language or physically inside for the person struggling. Feeling early signs of trembling or tenseness in the body, shortened breath, feeling a bit dizzy, disorientated, feeling a few pains and strains, and so on. Or even feeling like there is something wrong, something doesn't quite feel right. That can be an early sign. Of course, you're not always going to know, and it's not always predictable, but no circumstances to look out for it. For body language, from the other half, if they appear like they're disassociating in and out, or they have a certain glare and stare and they're not quite there with it, or it seems like that. They seem a little bit distracted, preoccupied in their thoughts or mind. They may look a bit tense, or their hands or feet could be clenching or tensing in a way. They seem a bit stiff, or they're not moving, or they feel a bit frozen. That might be the time. If they're looking around a bit agitated, rapid movement, rapid eye movement, they might be on the verge or almost there already. If, for example, you are in a busy place, a shopping centre, a shop, a restaurant, a pub, a mall for people in the US, if you were just out in a street, out in a field, out in a park where it might be very busy and there's a lot of people around, or there might be an environment where there's a lot of noise about, or you're at a house party, a lot of noise, a lot of lights, a lot of potential triggers. The one with the symptoms might get overwhelmed by it, or by something indirect as a sensory reminder of the past, or maybe OCD and the rituals not being fulfilled in a certain environment or place, in a different location, around different people. That routine changing can leave people feeling a bit uneasy. Different triggers, different things like that, where it can be harmful to them and their health. The best thing to do in environments like that, where there's a lot of noise, or there's a lot of people, there's a lot of senses going on, is a tactical retreat. A tactical retreat is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength and intelligence. Retreating, walking away, taking a step back, leaving the room, or with someone who's struggling, leaving the room, escorting them somewhere where it's a bit quieter, somewhere where it's a bit familiar, whether it's quieter, whether it's visually more pleasing because of the colours, it's vibrant, or somewhere where there's running water, a sound where that can bring about a calming effect, especially if you know what they like and dislike, taking them somewhere where they would like or what they would be familiar with. A tactical retreat is escaping from the chaos and storm, and then dealing with the effects that come with it when in the presence of it beforehand. It can lower the panic, and the methods of breathing, the calming sounds, the sensory 1, 2, 3, 4 method can get through to them a little bit easier. And it can happen at any time. The important factor is, especially as a partner or a friend to someone, to show that support, to show that understanding, to show that you value them, even if they feel bad, even if they blame themselves, even if they felt like a burden upon yourself. The best thing that one can do for a person with those symptoms is to be there for them and to support them without expecting too much, without asking or demanding for too much when doing the methods in coping, and without overreacting, just staying calm, staying present and punctual with them, listening to them, even if it's just listening, and being frequent and consistent with those methods. So the routine of dealing with a panic attack and the methods behind it when in the presence of a loved one, that routine can complement the OCD part, but in a healthy way, if that makes sense. And the panic attacks, knowing what to expect in some circumstances, when it's an unexpected one especially, and if a person's present, a familiar face, that method of what can be done, what can be applied, what can be learned and taught and then implemented in circumstances where people can't be together at the same time, but they take on board what they were taught, what they learned, and what they became familiar with and adjusted. So it doesn't create that intense dependency. There is still the distance with respect, but there's still that closure of knowledge. With understanding the backstory behind methods, the importance and the significance, they can always refer back to that to add that value and that purpose behind why they do try to breathe and why they do try to regulate their systems, and how they've been taught it by someone who they look up to or like, for example. But the tactical retreat is one of the key methods. Getting out from an environment or an area which could be triggering to lower the panic, to lower the exposure, to reduce the possible time and length of that panic attack. And same with the OCD side effects, limiting it. If in a situation where a person during or before a panic attack was to come about and it links to OCD, where they feel they've not done something, they've doubted themselves, the partner, what should they do? Take matters into their own hand and say, I'll check myself? As loving and caring as that can be, it might feel like a loss of control to them. By you doing it, they want to be certain, they want to be sure themselves, so they need to do it themselves. What you could offer instead is support and understanding and listening to them. If they were to ask for a second opinion, such as, should I, shouldn't I? I'm not too sure. They should check the door. Should I go back just to see? What do you say? No, don't bother. No. What you could say is, well, I guess there's no harm. We can always check. But this is the thing. Check together. So you get to check for yourself, whether that be out of peace of mind, but also you get to do it for them. So you feel a part and of value and there's purpose in a way. And it bridges that isolation from them. Because whilst they're dealing with it and coping, if they can follow a similar journey or pattern as yourself, they believe in you, they trust you, as in the partner. The partner believes in the one with the symptoms, trusts in them, listens to them, but negotiates by saying, hey, yes, that can be done, that can be checked, that can be redone or readjusted, but you don't have to do it alone this time round. I'm here. That can add a level and a layer of reassurance and stability that they've got their support and presence. So it can make them feel more comfortable. And in some circumstances where a person blames or feels guilt or feels shame for their condition, their struggles, it can lessen it, reduce that shame, because there is someone that thinks highly of them and understands or tries to learn. So there's that. The tactical retreat, though, regardless of the environment, to suggest to the person struggling, do you want to get away? Do you want to take some time out? Just a subtle little reminder. If a person was in a room full of people and they couldn't talk, whether that be the panic attack, or it be other issues, and they feel like they're drowning or they feel like they're on mute, they just can't get their words out, but they're screaming inside, what you could implement is a touch-based method that you say to the one with the symptoms, the other half, if you ever feel like you need to run, you feel like you need to run away from your emotions, you need to feel like you need to escape the room, the environment, you need a tactical retreat. Squeeze my hand 3 times or 5 times. Squeeze hard if it's bad and it's an intense panic attack. Squeeze lightly if it's mild but you still need some time out. That level of communication can bridge the gap. That level of communication can help the person who feels trapped in their own body and mind when they can't express themselves verbally. But if they can express themselves physically or through a certain social cue, you know when the time is to leave, when the time is to disengage with a conversation with someone else and to focus on the other half to make sure that they're okay and safe. So these little cues, these little advanced warnings, kind of like when you get safe words during intimacy, you could have safe actions and physical responses, holding the hand, squeezing a certain finger, tugging on the person's jacket 3 times to say, hey, I'm struggling, I'm not doing well, I need some time out, with or without you, and then you react to it. It creates a non-verbal form of interaction, and sometimes sitting in silence with someone can be very powerful and effective. So being able to communicate with someone in the same room without even talking is even more powerful. If it's even through not talking and not touching, but through eye contact, picking up, sensing a blink, a wink, something like that, because they're paralyzed or they don't want to make a scene. They don't want anyone to let on. That secret code word, that secret cue is what bridges that gap, closes the distance, makes them feel a part of you and you a part of their world. Regardless of how stormy and chaotic that world may be. Sometimes it's better to be in a storm and chaos than to be in silence, especially when in the chaos you're with someone you know and get on well with. You can bring about your own peace. You can bring about your own light within a dark room. You can bring about a level of warmth, even when there might not be any sun. So, busy environment, loud environment, there's a way out, a tactical retreat to regather physically and mentally, slow down time, focus on one thing, regulate, and then return back to whatever. Take some time out here and there and return back. So they're like the methods when it comes to dealing with a panic attack and linking on from, in a way, to an extent, OCD and the causes and the origins behind it all, and the overlap, how it can link with the PTSD, the side effects, the symptoms, the trauma responses, and more. So I hope this video helps in some way. If you want to share your thoughts below, feel free. Or if you just want to hit the thumbs up or share the video so more people get to see this so it helps, then that'd be appreciated. If you want to hit the hype button down below just for the state of awareness, that would be acknowledged. So we'll leave it there for now. Hopefully it wasn't too deep, and I appreciate those that did manage to watch, and anyone that may have been watching in the background during the live premiere is much appreciated. Shout out to you. My name's Wyatt Raff. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye and good night for now.